You approved that yet? Agenda tonight. All right. Okay, good evening and welcome to our Board of Trustees, Village of Monroe, meeting here on June 6th. If we could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you and welcome for attending this evening's meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to have a moment of silence, acknowledging the 79th anniversary of D-Day. D-Day was the turning of the war in World War II in Europe, and it gives us the rights that we have today, I believe, because of those men and women at that time. Thank you. Okay, first order of business. I need a motion to open the public hearing that we had on the resolution number 2 of 2023, draft amended comprehensive plan. It's a continuation of the public hearing. Can I get a motion to reopen?
Carl will make that motion.
Berenger will second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to indicate for the public that this is a reopening of the public hearing
Right.
because the board felt that there were enough comments from the public and enough questions raised that an opportunity for public comment was a good idea prior to continuing to address or accept those laws.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone from the public wish to speak regarding the comprehensive plan? Please come on up, give the clerk your name, please.
Good evening, Mayor Dwyer, members of the Board of Trustees. For the record, my name is Dan Richmond. I'm with the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz. We submitted a letter dated May 12, 2023. I guess the first thing I wanted to clarify is that would be considered part of this record
Yes,
because it's a continuation.
yes.
So the board already has our letter. I'll just briefly outline, as we explained, we think there's many elements of the proposed comprehensive plan that appear to run afoul of the Court of Appeals requirements as set forth in its landmark case of Berenson versus the town of Newcastle. And what the court said is it's clear that community efforts at immunization or exclusion would not be countenanced. So exclusionary zoning is not permitted, and then specifically the court said in enacting a zoning ordinance, consideration must be given to the regional needs with a particular respect to multifamily housing. And it explained that the local desire to maintain the status quo needs to be balanced against the greater public interest that regional needs be met. So I'll just point out a couple elements, and again, this is set forth in greater detail in our letter of May 12th to your board. There are certain statements in the comprehensive plan, for example, recommendation H.1.2.1, which proposes the elimination of the URM district from any remaining vacant lots, seems to pretty clearly vacate those principles, including that the statement in the comprehensive plan or the draft that it was prompted by, quote, the public's clear indication that townhouses and multifamily housing is not the preferred housing option, and that townhouse and multifamily housing outside the downtown has the potential to encroach on single-family character. Again, these and there's several other elements in the draft comprehensive plan appear not only unsupportable, but again, run afoul clearly of the requirements or the prohibition against exclusionary zoning. We would ask your board to seriously reconsider the elements outlined in our May 12th letter. We also think going forward, the project or the comprehensive plan needs to be subject to an environmental impact statement under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, including because it clearly has the potential to affect existing patterns of population concentration, distribution, or growth, and existing community or character, as required to be analyzed by secret. And this clearly surpasses the low threshold triggering a requirement for an EIS. I thank you, board. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Anyone else in the public wish to speak upon this draft amended comprehensive plan? Okay, I think what we'll do is we're going to keep that public hearing open on this. So, as council said, we spent a lot of time on it, and we wish to continue that. So, we'll keep it open. Okay, next order of business. I need a motion to reopen the public hearing for local law 4 of 2023, the Village of Monroe Landmarks Preservation Local Law.
Berenger will make the motion.
Carl will second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye. Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay, the public hearing is open on the Landmarks Preservation Local Law. Anyone wishing to speak, you're welcome to come on up.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hello.
You all know me as Tim Mitz with Rest Haven. I think the law is good, but I think the law is cumbersome. I think you might have a problem under the 5th and 14th Amendment with all the restrictions that are on the program. You're asking people to do things and comply and give their property, like I do, every opportunity to survive. But when you employ us that we have to do something, you have a board that you're appointing, the planning board, to be the HPC. The problem is I've had some issues with them recently, and the planning board apparently has no time to call me back and respond. I think you get to a point where you start piling things up on a board, and they become overheated in their ability to respond. If anything, it should be a separate board, not the board of the planning board, because it is a unique item. It's not an item that is throughout the Village of Monroe. There are only a selected number of properties that really are under that guidance of things. A lot of buildings have been torn down already, burnt down, that would never come under this. People have rebuilt. So I think it really should be a separate board. It should not be the same board. It's too much power to one board. And if anybody knows about power and the power of the planning board, I've been dealing with it since 2016. And it started off with the prior chairman doing everything possible and recorded on tape of abusing his power. And I think you need to do away with that. I think, on the other hand, you got to look at the owners and say, if you want me to improve, which I've done it without any incentive from this board, other than you've welcomed what we've been doing, but I'm talking from a financial point of view, to tell us that, oh, you have to do this or you have to do that, becomes encumbersome on the owner. And you really need to take that consideration. We pay nearly $40,000 a year in taxes on Rest Haven, and we get nothing but delays and delays and delays. The building department recently delayed us. We had 45 days to put a permit in. They waited to the 48th day. It's too much power, too much control. You got to take it away. And some of the ways of taking it away is in financial incentives. I have before on me, and I'm going to hand it to Kim, or if you want Kim, but I have two documents to hand you. First document is the LPTLR 444A. Kim, can I give this to you so it can be distributed? This is already in the tax records. It only requires you, the board, to approve it. What it is an historical tax credit that people can take when under this law you tell them to do things. They can get a reduction in real estate taxes for doing what they're doing in compensation. I feel that you telling me what I need to do, what I have to do, and you all know me, I do everything I have to do for my property, but it becomes burdensome. Then you get timelines put on you, or services aren't available. How many people do plaster walls nowadays? You know, there's ways around it, but you really got to look at that. And to make it easier for you, and this is how easy it is, I'm going to give Kim 2. The state already has an application for it. It's just a matter of this board approving it. If you want to approve the law, then you need to give the incentive, because what it says, basically the way the law works, it says you come in, you improve your property, and you get a 10-year tax benefit. The first 5 years is at 100%, and the balance just descends at 20% every year up to the 10th year. You're giving people a percent incentive to do what they're doing. Not that you're telling them to do it, but you're giving them the incentive, because if you don't give them the financial incentive, they're not going to do it. Why do it? It doesn't make any sense. I do it because I like doing it. But we've been paying $10,000 a month for 7 years on this house. We've done everything. You all know the history behind that. I don't got to tell you. But you need to take the power away from the planning board, get a different committee where people know what they're doing. You need people who know building structure, need people who know architects, people who can do research and stuff. One of the things I also don't see in here, and maybe I missed it, in the law, in the town of Monroe, the person that can designate a property historical is the federal government, National Park Services, which they did with Rest Haven in 2017, 3 months after the state, who's the second one that can do it, designated us. But they also allow your town historian to make that determination. They don't leave it with the board to make that determination. They're educated, they're licensed, that's what they've been doing. Like Jim Nelson, he's been around 42 years. So does anybody know more than Jim Nelson? History here? So that's important. You got to look at that before you put this law into place. I recognize the writings because I've seen it in other jurisdictions, and I'm not bothered by it. But remember, encumbrance. If you encumber them with regulations, you're going to encumber the lack of success to the project. And that's just a pure reality. How many people want to pay $40,000 a year in taxes, but yet the building department gives you a hard time getting your license to do what you want? Or the planning board decides to throw you out of the planning board session because the building department gave them wrong information. All this stuff goes on. You guys have to get that under control. You've done a lot. I've been fully supportive of the board. I've helped out where I can. I've offered to help out where I could. And I've done my part. But the reality is, I don't mind giving, but you can't keep encumbering the community on this type of regulation. And it leads me to the most important thing. You start this regulation. Does that mean you're creating a new regulation, or are you amending the current historical regulations you have at 261.1? Will that change? The other question is, if you have if it's going to be different, and you have historical rules for the historical district versus those outside the historical district, is that going to be what's going to happen here? Because one of the big things I remember when dealing with 261.1 when it was created was the issue of equality across the board. I know this board was very strong about making sure everybody got treated the exact same way. So what are you going to do if you give a set of laws in the historical district, what are you going to be doing with those outside the district? You got to figure that out. But I don't think you have you need the building department to be able to enforce those laws. You need a committee that knows what they're doing, full of people who know what they're doing, not just running out and getting an architect or an engineer that thinks he knows what he's doing. There are actually guys, when you go on the internet, you can find them, that's what these guys do for a living. That's all they do. And I think you need to know that. The barn over on Pinecrest, we just found out, can be a historical status, and we're working towards that. But that required me to go into Ben, talking to Ben, saying, what do I got to do, going through the rules with Ben. I've been dealing with Ben for 20 years now, come August, because we've been on Sergio for 20 years. He guided me what we needed to do, but he made me understand what the procedure is. But you got to be able to follow. You can't have things coming in to this committee, into the building department, and it's not being followed, or it's not being followed up on. The building department's job is very simple. They get a permit in, Mr. Cox will approve it according to code. He issues a permit, and that stuff has to be followed. It's not. Information back to the planning board has to be accurate, because those guys are relying on other departments to give them information. But how can you encumber the building, the planning board, if with all these projects you got going on? You just delay the projects because there's too much on their plate. So I would suggest you get a separate committee together and let that committee decide on the historical stuff. I think it's a great idea. I think it'll get you somewhere. But I employ upon you, make sure that you think about all that and the financial hardship that you may put on other people by enacting these laws without any credit. And I think this program is one of the best to have around because it gives us an incentive to do. I remember standing up here several years ago when I first got here, and Ms. Conklin, Trustee Conklin, used to complain about how high the rents are. Well, why do you think the rents are so high? Taxes are high, insurance is high, maintenance of the building is high. You know, you got to figure it out somehow and balance it out. I'll leave it to you guys because you know your numbers, you know what goes behind the scenes, what needs to be done, but you need to balance those things out. You need to really seriously think about what you're doing and what you're implementing. And remember, that will impact your wallet as much as ours, or your family that may be looking for a place. You know, those are important things that we need to do, and that's part of what Pinecrest is about. We're trying to rehabilitate Pinecrest because we have 20 buildings there that we need housing, but we're not tearing everything down to do it. We don't have to. But red tape will slow you up. How fast do you want it? Someone said to me, why don't you just tear the buildings down and put new buildings up? Why? Because it takes 10 years by the time it gets done. And by the time you do all the politics and everything. I ruled that out. We thought about it, but I ruled it out. It's quicker and easier to rehab what we have, and I totally agree with that. So again, I appreciate your time tonight, and good luck on your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on the landmark preservation local law? Okay. I'd like to keep that meeting, the public hearing open. Is there anything further? This time I need a motion to reintroduce Local Law 5, Village of Monroe Place of Worship and Schools, Local Law amending Chapter 200 of the Village Code zoning. I need a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Ferraro will make the motion.
Carl will second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay, this public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter regarding the, this local law 5 of 2023 is welcome to come on up.
Thank you again, Mayor Dwyer, members of the board. Again, for the record, my name is Dan Richmond from the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz. Again, we submitted a letter on Local Law 5, comments dated May 12, 2023, which I know was submitted to your board, and again, just want to confirm that that's part of the record for this continued hearing. Well, you do have our letter, so I'm just going to outline some of the major points in it. We think the law, as proposed, runs afoul of serious significant precepts in both state and federal law. As your board certainly is aware, under New York law is well established as a matter of public policy that educational and religious uses are presumed to have a beneficial effect. And for that reason, since municipalities' power to regulate land use is derived solely from its police powers to promote the morals, health, and welfare and safety of the community, municipalities may not prohibit educational or religious uses from any zoning district. Rather, they're supposed to be subject to a special permit inquiry in every district. Moreover, under state law, special relevance here, municipalities cannot impose conditions on religious or educational uses that by their cost, magnitude, volume, or otherwise operate indirectly to exclude such uses altogether. And in fact, under New York law, a municipality cannot require that a religious institution or educational institution show no ill effects because that fails to recognize that these uses have inherently beneficial impacts on the community. And in fact, under state law, they deserve special treatment with respect to zoning ordinances, which requires that the municipality show greater flexibility in evaluating these applications, and every effort to accommodate them must be made. Under the Federal Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act of 2000, or RLUIPA, as many know, land use regulations that impose a substantial burden on religious exercise can only be can only be allowed where they, A, are in furtherance of a governmental interest, and also that they're implemented in the least restrictive means necessary. Also, RLUIPA prohibits land use regulations that treat religious assemblies and institutions on less than equal terms. I've given this background, again, by way, so first, several of the uses, or none of the uses, are allowed in the village's GB, General Business District, or its Village Recreation District, and residential gathering places and schools of general instruction are not proposed to be included in the CB district. Again, as I've outlined, these categorical exclusions are illegal under state law, and they also violate RLUIPA's equal terms provision, including in the GB district, which allows comparable and even more impactful uses. We request that in the first instance, so that those uses be allowed and be included in those districts, and that this be renoticed once those are included and reasonable bulk requirements are proposed. With respect to the proposed regulations regarding residential gathering places, they appear to be illegal for several reasons, including because of their cost, magnitude, and volume. They'll operate indirectly to exclude these uses. They also violate RLUIPA by improperly imposing a substantial burden without any compelling governmental interest, and are not narrowly tailored to be implemented in the least restrictive means. They also violate RLUIPA's equal terms provision, and they improperly regulate the internal operations of residences. Again, so for example, the substantial parking requirements appear, first of all, incapable of implementation, but in any event, they appear designed to, by their cost, magnitude, and volume, to impose or to effectively exclude these uses. The screening requirements appear solely intended to voice costs and appear unreasonable when, again, the whole proposed local law itself recognizes that a religious residential gathering place would be a house like any other in the community. Ultimately, the legislation appears aimed at compelling small religious or other gatherings to engage in a land use process that by itself, through its cost, magnitude, and volume, would indirectly exclude them. The proposed local law also does not articulate a compelling governmental interest to justify the substantial burden it's imposing in violation of RLUIPA. Again, as the Second Circuit and as the United States Supreme Court have observed, compelling governmental interests are only those that protect the public health, safety, or welfare. They are interests of the highest order. And inasmuch as this legislation appears really geared towards aesthetic and other considerations, your board should be aware that the courts have already held that visual impacts do not themselves constitute a compelling governmental interest. There also is not a compelling governmental interest in imposing parking requirements in connection with small religious gatherings, particularly to communities that do not drive on the Sabbath or religious holidays. There's also a proposal to limit outside temporary structures to detached buildings for more than 5 days a year, which would violate several Jewish religious precepts, including Sukkot, in which Jews are required to eat in a sukkah or a booth or tent-like structure for 8 days, and then the high holidays, which are another 5-day period, and there may be other times. Again, these are further outlined in our letter. For example, the bulk requirements appear inconsistent, and there's no explanation why a different, for example, a height requirement would require that a residential gathering place only be 30 feet high, while a one-family dwelling can be up to 35 feet high. So we ask, in the first instance, that part of that local law 5 be reconsidered. So much of local law 5 is purports to regulate neighborhood places of worship, also for similar reasons are illegal. For example, the bulk requirements opposed relating to these uses there's no justification provided for doubling the lot requirements for religious assemblies in the SR 10 district, tripling it in the SR 20 district, and increasing it sixfold in the URM district. Indeed, given that the use is the same regardless of the district in which it is located, the varying lot area requirements appear patently arbitrary, and there is no compelling interest proffered or cognizable related to these bulk requirements. The proposed bulk requirements also violates RLUIPA's equal terms provision. For example, the local law would require in the SR 20 district that a neighborhood place of worship be located in a lot of at least 65,000 square feet and have a coverage of 25%, while convalescent homes in the same district are allowed in lots less than half that size of about 30,000 feet, but can have coverage up to 60%. Similarly, in the CB district, theaters and cultural centers and other comparable and more intense uses appear exempt entirely from the bulk requirements. For similar, and again, there are other reasons we give in the letter, which I hope you'll read. Similarly, local law 5's efforts to regulate community places of worship for the same reasons appear to be unsustainable. Initially, for example, the bulk requirements applicable to them do not appear related to anything having to do with the public health, safety, or welfare. For example, there's no justification for increasing by sixfold the lot requirements for religious assemblies in the SR 10 and SR 20 districts, tripling it in the SR 20 and increasing it 12-fold in the URM. Again, the arbitrariness of these requirements is evidenced by the fact that it's the same use, just in different districts, and we see no compelling home. For similar reasons, as I stated in the previous category, the bulk requirements appear to violate RLUIPA's equal terms provisions. For example, under the local law in the SR 20 district, a neighborhood place of worship would be required to be on a lot of at least 120,000 square feet and have lot coverage limited to 25%, while the village code would allow convalescent homes in the same district on lots less than fourth that size, but with coverage of up to 60%. Turning to the general, so much of local law 5 as would regulate schools of general instruction. Again, for the same reasons, for similar reasons, that portion of the regulation needs to be seriously reconsidered because it's illegal, including because of its cost, magnitude, and volume that it would impose on these uses. Insofar as they relate to religious uses, they would violate RLUIPA, and including because they lack a compelling governmental interest and are not narrowly tailored to be implemented in the least restrictive means possible. For example, the proposed local law provides no justification for the excessive minimum bulk requirement on schools of 120,000 square feet, or the further requirement that 50,000 square feet be added for each additional increment of 50 students. Regulations include multiple and unreasonable requirements, including, for example, that the appearance of a school of a general instruction be of similar design to its neighborhood, excessive open space restrictions, excessive and impractical landscaping requirements, unrealistic and onerous parking requirements, which are particularly in as much as the law's assumption that one parking space is needed for 2 enrolled students over 16 reflects an unduly entitled perspective and certainly does not reflect the realities of many members of the religious community. And also the delegation to the police board of control over faculty and staff arrivals and departure time, and no discussion of how this relates to students. Ultimately, again, this law needs to be subject to an environmental impact statement. Under SECRA, it clearly passes a low threshold triggering the requirement for an EIS because it clearly has the potential to impact population patterns, population concentration, distribution, and growth, which are critical considerations under SECRA. We hope to be able to work with your board on these, but again, I think this law needs serious reconsideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public on this matter? Okay, this one will as well remain open. Sorry?
Can I speak?
Please.
For public, if I may?
On what matter?
On the matter of the synagogues and just
Please.
what's going on?
Yeah. No.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good
If
evening.
you just give your clerk your name?
Mordecai Strix, M-O-R-G-E-C-H-A-I-S-T-R-I-K-S. Good evening, and I appreciate your honor and honorable members. I appreciate you giving me the time to speak tonight. I'd like to do a couple things tonight, address a couple things. One is I'll introduce myself. I want to speak a little bit about anti-Semitism or anti-Hasidism, maybe some of the reasons behind it, some of the misunderstandings. And I want to speak about the impossible. I also want to encourage all of you here and behind me to love the Hasidim for the amazing good that they do, and don't hate them for the things that maybe bother you or their misunderstandings. And I want to explain a little bit, if you don't mind. My name is Mordecai Strix. My wife and I own a property out here in Monroe. Beautiful property. We love coming here. Got a little pond, pool, jacuzzi. Sometimes I'll come up from the city just to be here for a couple hours. Absolutely love the place. My wife grew up in KJ. My mother-in-law still works in KJ. And I pray every morning, or most mornings, at my friend's house. So I'm very familiar about the prayers and the culture. So the anti-Semitism or the anti-Hasidism, I think a lot of it comes from a misunderstanding. And I'll tell you, honestly, I'm guilty of it as well. Back before I started dating my wife, one of my friends came up to my wife and said, "Hey, would you ever date Mordecai?" And she said, "Absolutely not." And he's like, "Why not?" And he said, "Well, because he makes fun of the Hasidim." Now, it wasn't nasty, it wasn't disgusting, but it was the tropes. It was the teasing. And, you know, after I got to meet her, I stopped making those jokes about the tropes, about the standardization. It wasn't a cognitive decision, but it was just because I got to know her, and I got to know her culture, and so it sort of just stopped. You know, I didn't think about it, it just stopped because I got to understand what was going on and the reason behind some of the things that they do, and it stopped. And thank God we got married. I guess it's working out for now. I would love sort of, I guess, a way to introduce you to them, not in a setting like this where there's laws and rules that make what they like to do maybe more difficult. I don't know, I know it's difficult to do that, but I'd love to have you guys over for a barbecue maybe. I happen to be, used to be in barbecue competition, I make a mean brisket. You know, to see them in a different light and have this understanding of them, just like I did when I was making those sort of jokes, and I did. You know, another example of this anti-Semitism or anti-Hasidism or misunderstanding is if you go on the Facebook on Monroe Matters. My wife is devastated. I tell her to leave it all the time. Every winter snowstorm, what happens? There's a picture of a wire hanging with snow on it, blocking traffic. Those Jews and their Erev, right? I know that you guys were very instrumental in allowing it. And what happens? Hundreds and hundreds of posts. What's an Erev? Why is it blocking? How does the town do that? Everyone's up in arms and angry, and the things they say are just horrific. What is that wire? That wire is a thick black wire with snow on it, crossing the ground, crossing the roadway and blocking. But as you know, that can't be the Erev. The Erev is a barely seen wire that's fishing line, that I have to wear special glasses when I go tuna fishing to see it, polarized glasses, just to see it. So here, it's a misunderstanding. Now, I'm not going to go up on there and say, "Hey, guys, that's not the Erev." It just wouldn't work out well. But it's just misunderstanding. Now, there may be some issues, but here, it's a misunderstanding, and hundreds of people are now angry at the Hasidim for blocking traffic. I would be upset also. They need to pray. We need to pray. It's impossible to stop all of us from praying. We need to do it. And having these large synagogues in places, it's just not practical, as it was explained, because of Sabbath and everything. So, and that's why it's happening in the homes. You know, I believe it's not hurting anyone, not harming anyone, but that's the real reason. They fight the impossible all the time. And I want to give you two examples of the positive impossibilities. Growing up, I was told, and I think you as well, that if you want to be successful in life, you want to provide for your family, you need to go to college. You get your degrees. And that's what I did. I have a master's in school psychology. I have a master's in school business administration, so I can become a principal of a public school. I got licenses. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I'm a licensed paramedic in the state of New York and the city of New York. I'm also a licensed real estate agent and trying to do some deals here out in Monroe. Oh yeah, I also have a doctorate in education. These Hasidim sitting behind me, most of them never went to college. They didn't go to further education like I did. And you know what? They're beating the impossible. They're doing what we all said was impossible. They're taxpayers in the town here. They own buildings. They own companies. They're doing good things for everyone. I think that's something that needs to be noted. Another impossible story, and this I saw with my own eyes. If I would tell you guys that, let's say, Lakes Road, all the way down past West Monbassia, if I told someone, sir, a non-Jewish person, in about 30 minutes, God forbid, your wife is going to go unconscious, massive stroke. You're going to pick up the phone and call 911. The West Monbassia Fire Department or EMS Department is not going to respond. The Tuxedo EMS Department is not going to respond with those beautiful fly cars. Ramapo's not responding. You know who's going to respond to you? Hasidim, with their white socks, knickers, fringes, and sideburns. You'd have 2 EMTs come to your door. He's going to say, that's impossible, that can't happen, I just called 911. And the Hasidim EMTs are going to see this person unconscious and say, we need backup, we need medics. And the medics are going to come. And who's going to be? The Hasidim. He says, sir, that's impossible, not going to happen. And then what comes to take the patient to the hospital? A large ambulance with Jewish lettering on the side, Jewish words. Sir, that's impossible. Well, what happened? 30 minutes later, this person's wife goes unconscious. He dials 911. Tones it out in Monroe. Now, maybe I'm incorrect. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'll tell you something. The Monroe County didn't respond. KJ EMS Azola responded. And who walks in? 4 EMTs and paramedics wearing the white socks with the knickers, with the fringes, with the sideburns, and a big ambulance, Jewish ambulance with letters for a non-Jewish person who's unconscious. That's impossible. Where else in the United States can you pick up a phone, dial 911, don't get your locals, and get the Hasidim to help you, take you to a hospital that's 45 minutes away? It's a 2-hour trip. But the impossible happens here every day in Monroe, for the good and for the better of Monroe. I urge you to do the impossible as well and allow them to pray in their homes. Monroe is a better place with the Hasidim here. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you.
Mordecai Strex.
Thank you.
I would like to make a note for the record that these local laws apply equally to all. And so any implication that any of these local laws are intended, as you seem to imply, to prevent the Hasidim or anyone else from praying is absolutely not true. And I want this board to make a note of that. Very interesting, very nice. It's wonderful, but it has nothing to do with what this board is doing. And the implication that these are exclusionary laws is simply not true.
Then I will clarify that if I imply that these are exclusionary laws, and I guess I clarify, these laws apply to everyone.
That's correct.
That they apply to everyone. I am just reporting how it affects the Hasidim. That's what I was doing. But if I said it was only, that you're making these laws only for the Hasidim, I apologize, and I'll state it publicly. I said not for, these laws are for everyone, every nationality. So I'll clarify that, and I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public on this matter? Okay, well, we're going to be keeping this open as well, as they say. I want to step right into the next one, which is the reopening of the Local Law 6 of 2023, the amendment to the Village of Monroe Architectural Review Board, or review, excuse me. I need a motion to reopen that public hearing.
Berenger will make the motion.
Carl will second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carl, aye.
O'Connor, I.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay, local law, introduction of local law 6 is now open public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, please come on up.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Again, I'm Dan Richmond from the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz. Again, we submitted a letter dated May 12th, which I understand will be part of the record on this as well. We just had a small point to make on this one. In particular, the local law now states that any deviation from a proposed architectural renderings or materials would require an amendment of approval by the planning board. We respectfully submit that you should allow for field changes, which are specifically recognized in your village code. This would give the building inspector, which is typical in many communities, the ability to authorize routine and minor changes. Again, requiring developers to reappear before the planning board anytime minor architectural alterations occur would cause unnecessary time, project and other expenses, and it would also conserve municipal resources. So we ask your board to allow, in this local law, for the possibility of field changes authorized by the building inspector. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone further on this matter?
Hello, folks, again, Tim Mitz. I would only say that, again, this is a problem where you're encouraging the planning board to take on more responsibility. They have no idea about architectural. They need an expert. There is a line of people that you could hire or put in your code, say they must retain to assist the planning board. But I don't think it should be the planning board architect that should have that responsibility. Again, you're now getting into historical properties with a very specific, unique thing. How many people in this room have actually worked on a historical building and understands the ins and outs of restoring the building? Not all architects use it. I use a local architect. He's not well versed in historical. He's a great guy. He knows his stuff, but when it comes to historical, what MPS and what the state requires, especially if you've got people here that are getting tax credits for doing what they're doing. New York State, if I rehab a building less than $2.5 million and it's in the National Registry, I get a 30% tax credit. Federally, I get a 20% tax credit. And it's beneficial, and this is the financial incentive I was talking about earlier. But if you don't have somebody competent looking at that, somebody who goes to the federal or state and says, hey, I want to get a credit, that person may have done something that cost that person that money. And now you're disincentivizing somebody to want to even do anything. So I highly recommend, again, that the provision instead be that they retain, at the cost of the applicant, somebody who's versed in that. I don't think the taxpayer should be putting it up either. And the reality is the cost that we pay for these architectural plans are actually part of that tax credit that we're entitled to. So if they tell you anything, they're getting minimally 40%, maybe 50% of that money back at the end of the project when they file for the tax credit with the government. You don't have to do grants. You can do, if it's an investment and it's a corporate-owned facility, you can do all the work and then apply for the credit and get it back as a refund, both federal and state. But again, you're charging people on a planning board that do not have a lot of knowledge about it. And the person coming into that planning board may think that person knows what they're doing because they're an architect. I thought all architects knew everything. I thought all engineers knew everything. Well, I found that wrong. I've had enough engineers, enough architects, surveyors, and they're not all created equal. And I think, again, you're putting a burden on a board that they can't even handle what they have right now, especially with all the expansions, all the demand for the multifamilies, the plots, the lands that are being broken up into either multifamily or single-family home. You're putting a burden on to them. So now they have to worry about the historical as well as the normal stuff that has nothing to do with historical. So my recommendation is that instead of encouraging a responsibility increase on the architect, encourage, even on me, encourage the hiring of an architect who's familiar historically with things. And they're out there. Preservation of New York State has organizations that are attached to them that you can hire people that, if, for instance, what should a facade be? How is it made? That's the type of things we're talking about. We're not talking structurally, because what you see in between the wall doesn't matter when you're talking about an historical property. It's the common area that becomes the importance. My bathrooms and kitchens are all redone. I'm allowed to because those are more private areas, and the bedrooms, as long as there's nothing significant. But again, you can't force it on the planning board. You need to force it on the applicant to do it. And that would be determined by the planning board. I'm not saying the planning board doesn't determine that they need it, but don't force it on the planning board. Let an outside person take it. And then the planning board architect can look at it and get educated by their knowledge of what's going on with this building. Because one thing wrong, you make one mistake, and they will lose that money. And why should you, the board, the planning board, or any other government agency be responsible for that? Because you are taking on the responsibility of that. I mean, irrelevant, right, wrong, or indifferent. So I really strongly suggest that instead you implement the requirements like they do with engineers, escrow, and we hire somebody to do it. I thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on the Monroe Architectural Review? Okay, just for the public's knowledge, these 4 public hearings are all reopens of public hearings that we've had on prior board meetings, and we're going to continue to keep them open as we continue to work through them. Board is committed to reviewing all the documentation, all the comments. We've gotten quite a bit, and it's going to take some time to get through all of it. So the board is committed to it, council's committed to it, so I just want the board to know that we're working on all of it. Okay? So, the next order of business is the public hearing, the introduction of local law 8 of 2023, amending chapter 43 of the Village Code, Vehicles and Traffic, to provide certain temporary exemptions from parking, prohibiting parking commercial vehicles in residential districts. I'd like to just read, if I could, and then we'll open up the public hearing. Public hearing is being held on Tuesday, June 6, 2023, in the boardroom of the Village Hall, 7 Stage Road, Monroe, New York, at 7 p.m. to review a proposed local law entitled amending Chapter 43 of the Village Code, Vehicles and Traffic, to provide certain temporary exemptions from parking, prohibiting parking commercial vehicles in residential districts. The Village Board of Trustees finds and determines that the temporary parking of commercial vehicles on village streets and residential neighborhoods for the purposes of delivering goods, wares, or merchandise, or rendering services to premises in the immediate vicinity thereof provides a valuable service to the village residents. I need a motion to open the public hearing on this matter.
Carl will make that motion.
O'Connor will second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I. Carl, I.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay, this public hearing is now open of the introduction of local law 8, amending chapter 43. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you. So my name is Aaron Schwartz. I'm a school bus driver here in Monroe, in the area. I live in here in Half Hollow Turn. And in the first place, I have a afternoon shift every day. And in the first place, when it came out the law that it's not allowed to park on the streets, I believe I don't see any problem to park on the side of the street like normal parked in. And I don't know of any of my neighbors that should complain, maybe one of the whole street around. But now that I'm not gonna be able to come home to eat dinner with my kids, and for this half hour or so period of time, and I'm not gonna be able to park in my driveway for that small period of time, I don't see why I shouldn't be able to park, and why shouldn't it be safe or something. So I would ask, please, not to make such a law that should affect me and my wife, my family, my job, and everything, and also my friend that lives around the corner, Mr. Teller. He's also a school bus driver. We drive for the same company, and I would please ask to not to make such a law, that I should be able to come home, eat dinner with my family, and thank you very much.
Just a real quick question. Did you
Okay.
say that you were not able to park in your driveway
I'm not going to be able to park in my driveway
or the street?
or in the street.
Right.
That this law passed already before.
Right.
I didn't know that before, so I wasn't able to come ask to,
Sure.
no,
I understand. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you
yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you for coming.
They can park in his driveway.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Please.
I'm the neighbor from, my name is Vijay.
What is it? I'm sorry.
My name is Vijay.
Site distance problem.
I'm the neighbor from Mr. Schwartz, Mr. Teller, and I've asked around a few neighbors around the corner if it's about them. Nobody can tell me it's about them in the driveway. For sure, it's not about them. And if someone has a problem in the driveway, I think it's a lot of Midwest, a lot of 50, 60 miles is without any cars, without any things to look on. So I think you need to look on the people's working hard to come eat dinner, lunch, and to think about for them.
Sure.
I have a question. Is the bus in the driveway overnight?
No, only middle of the day, half an hour.
That's fine. We're just going to look that up real quick. We're going to look up under that local law that we had adopted regarding the parking on the street, the prohibition. That's in the driveway too?
No, only a street.
Just in the street, right? Yeah.
Just the street.
Right.
So just to be clear, when you said it, that's why I'm asking you. I wanted to hear it again. So there's no prohibition to you parking in your driveway? I'm sorry.
As long as you don't block the sidewalk.
Right, that's what Chief told me.
So you say it's not a suggested law to not allow to park in the driveway?
That's not a problem.
Okay, so.
The street
what-
is the problem,
The
not
street is the
driveway.
problem. That's where the law is effective, but not
Okay.
in the driveway. And as long as you're not blocking the sidewalk, then,
So I would ask that I should be allowed to park in the street where it's safe to park, because in the beginning, in the first place, I don't feel safe to.
excuse me,
Can't really hear.
could I ask, please?
I don't feel in the first place, I don't feel safe to park in the driveway. But if you say I can't park on the street, I will have to park in the driveway,
Which is fine.
which is fine if
Oh.
you say if this is the only option that I have.
Oh,
I would ask also to be able to park on the street in a safe place.
so are you, let me just try to get us into the picture here. So if I turn into Wingate Woods and I make a right, so I go in straight and then I make the right onto Half Hollow,
Mm-hmm.
and the first thing I have is a bend.
Okay.
Where are you in relation to that bend?
I'm not, I don't live over there. I live by the second, where it turns by
Okay,
Corner.
so all the way at the bottom of the
all the
hill,
way at the bottom of the hill.
and then it goes back up
Then-
toward the left a bit.
Yeah. So I live in the center over there.
Okay,
I live 31.
okay,
And I used to park or on this side or on the other side across.
sure.
And I don't see anywhere I should block the view or something.
Well, I mean, I don't know
Okay, whatever.
without measuring it or know it up front, but I can tell you that when the bus is parked in the road, that's the lane of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So the only other lane you have is this lane. So if you're coming down, let's say a car,
Yeah.
or another truck or delivery, whatever, and you're here,
Mm-hmm.
when someone's coming down, they're in the oncoming lane to get around the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the top of the hill, there is a sight issue. As you're coming around, you can't really visually see. Maybe you from your elevated part in the bus, but from the point of a car,
I understand.
it's very difficult to see what's around you, and for that reason is why we had passed that originally law. And not for there, it's for anywhere. I mean, just any place in the village of Monroe that has that environment, it's a concern for safety.
But what about inside the dead end, inside the cul-de-sac?
Well, I'll tell you what the challenge that would be. I'll ask council to weigh in on it, but the challenge there is that cul-de-sac and the circular thing of that. So let's say you had to have a fire truck there,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say you're parked down there for dinner.
For a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the fire truck would have come in, and I'm making all this up, right? I'm just imagining what could be.
Yeah.
That's an access issue. That's just on the face of it. First blush, that's the reason I'm saying it's there. I'm sure there's great design reasons why the cul-de-sac is there, so you could turn around, you don't make a broken U-turn, you know, things like that. That's the only thing I could come up with. Yeah.
So you say the new law will not be on to not park in the private, in residential parking lots?
So this law that's being considered right now has to do with, let's say you're getting a delivery of food, or you're getting furniture delivered.
Okay.
That truck needs to park in front of your home. He gets out, he does his business, and leaves. This is what this law is about. Let's say you have your lawn mowed, and you have a landscaper show up. He comes in, he does his business, he blows up his truck, and he goes. That's what this is about.
And
It's
this
all
is a
about those-
problem?
No, we don't want it to be a problem, so we're acknowledging it now. The prior
So
revi,
what do you wanna,
do this?
so what do you wanna to, what do you won't let them to
No,
park in the?
we will. We
Uh-huh.
are. That's what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
The permission to do that.
Permission?
Currently, that's not in the law.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had a landscaping truck or somebody come in to paint your home and he's in the street and he's there during a certain window of time in the hours of the day or whatever, we want to make sure that he has that. Currently, that's not permitted.
Mm-hmm.
This is,
You wanna
this is a,
exclude, whatever, any services you wanna do in the,
exactly.
mm-hmm.
And if you want, I believe, if you go to our website, if you can, if you can't, we could furnish a copy here of what that existing law is and what it will be, or what it's proposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right? Make sense?
Appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, anyone else wish to speak? Please. I'm sorry, Joe, what was your last name? Hi.
I don't.
And I understand over here that I will not have any issue feeling free parking on my own driveway. But I also want to make sure that I don't have like anybody of the neighbors may also follow will see every time I come home, and I put my vehicle over there to hold me with a car or hold them from my kids like them to say, hey, it's bothering me. I understand that parking on the street isn't safe, fine. But on my own driveway, when I come home just for to say hello for my kids,
Sure.
or to eat supper, I would like to feel free to do that and don't have any headaches from other neighbors.
In your driveway, you mean?
Yes, on my own driveway, I want to feel free to park with my vehicle
Yeah.
over there.
Absolutely. And that
Thank
currently,
you.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. No, this is the gentleman saying he comes home for dinner. Am I correct? You say you come home for dinner, you want to say hello to the kids, you want to have a meal, and then you want to go back to work.
Exactly.
Right.
The vehicle that I bring home is my job,
Yeah.
and I'm between trips,
Sure.
coming to go back to my lot where the vehicle have to be will take away my whole time to be with the kids.
I understand.
So I want to feel free to do it, to come home and say hello for my kids,
Yes.
and give them a kiss where they don't see me the whole day. The point is, if I will have to go back to my lot and not be able to put my vehicle on my own driveway, not on the street, it will be very, very good, almost won't be good. It will be very hard. I don't see in any town or any village. I am driving around in the village or the town to pick up small kids. I see many other residents feel okay to park them big tow trucks or other commercial, feeling that why, because this is his job.
Right.
So, fine, okay, thank you.
I hope we answered your question. So you're allowed to park in your driveway, that's yours, that's your thing. That's
And no one should,
right to do that. No,
and no one should like hassle me.
no,
Okay, thank you.
totally permitted, right? And then at the end of your shift, you're gonna take your
Yes, of
back,
course.
take your car, you go home for the
I
night.
do not leave the vehicle overnight, just to come home and to my family.
We're good.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, I did,
Hi, my name is Chaim Burnett. I live here at 5 Hall Court. 5 Hall Court.
excuse me, could I ask everyone to just keep the conversation
Thank
down?
you, everyone, to do a great job. It's great to drive around in the village of Monroe.
Hi, and where did you say you live?
5 Hall Court,
Oh, okay, yeah, uh-huh.
okay? The police department is doing a very well job over here.
Good.
I want to just one thing about parking the bus overnight. I've injured my finger one time. I'm a bus driver over here. I injured my finger one night, and I was not able to drive my bus back to the lot. So I called up my boss. I'm in pain. It's not safe for me to drive now. So please let my boss at night. He gave me the permission. It's his own vehicle. It's not my vehicle. So he gave me the permission. That's it. So every night I don't want to have it on my driveway because I don't want to have free. But once in a while, if I have an emergency, if it will be prohibited to park overnight, I will have a problem with it because it's not practical to park a bus overnight because it's not a private vehicle. It's owned by a company. But if it's a problem, then if it will be illegal to park it overnight for emergencies, it will be a big issue because I'm not safe to drive it back, so we'll need a tow.
So, well, we're not gonna come on your property.
I understand.
So you said you injured your finger?
Yes,
So
well,
this was in the past?
In the past.
The finger's good? So this is good?
Yes, just an anecdote how I need to park my bus overnight. I'm not doing it every time because we have my boss is paying for parking and I don't need it on my property.
Sure,
It's
no.
not mine.
Right, no, I think,
But just to understand what time somebody need the bus or a commercial vehicle without, if it's every night, then it's getting a problem. But once in a while, if he has an emergency, it's not so.
yeah, I don't know exactly what once in a while is, and, you know, it's
Once
a
in
great
a while,
department, they have discretion, the offices,
Like once in a lifetime.
so I won't speak to that. I can just tell you what's on the books, and overnight parking is not permitted.
I know that.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaim. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter?
Good evening, Lorraine Moaning. Are boats included in this? Because historically, I have someone on my street who parks a pontoon boat in front of their home on the street for weeks at a time. It's kind of ugly, it takes up half of the street, and I really don't want to look at it. So is that that's a commercial vehicle, right? It's on a trailer.
I imagine the plates are commercial
Okay.
plated. I mean, I could definitely look into that. I'm not,
I'd be grateful, thanks.
yeah, absolutely.
The law does identify recreational vehicles.
As,
It does,
as what?
as part of it.
Okay, and then forbidden.
You got the one on.
So
Whitman,
I
too.
just got the answer just now, just clarified, it is not permitted on the street. Now, that's across the street from you? But on Ironworks? Yeah, all right.
Get the one on Whitman, too.
Yeah.
I don't.
So as I understand, there's commercial vehicles will not be allowed to be parked in private driveways overnight? Is that what the law is about?
The law is about parking on the street.
Street.
So if are you a business?
One one commercial vehicle under the zoning law is allowed to park in the driveway. One, but they're not allowed to park on the street.
Well, it has to be over a certain weight. Small vans are allowed, multiple.
On the street?
You need a tractor
No.
trailer.
No, so
Driveway.
if you're receiving or you're out there doing your business, your commerce, and you're in the street, and you're delivering something, or you're repairing something, or you're building something, you're permitted to be out in the street. Currently, in our code, you're not. That's what this is about, to reverse that action. Make sense?
Okay, so if I'm employed and I have the company vehicle and I have my personal vehicle, or if, let's say, if I'm self-employed and I have two company vehicles, and I can't afford to have another property to park the company vehicle, so I park it in my property because I'm paying taxes on this property. It's nobody's business what I have in my driveway. Why shouldn't I be allowed to have two commercial vehicles in my driveway overnight? Street is one thing, that some cities have those rules, but not in the private. Once you pass that sidewalk, that property belongs to me. If somebody falls on it, the lawsuit goes on me, right? So I can put whatever I want on that property. It could be 2, 3, 5, whatever fits in that. Of course, there is a certain look to the area. There has to be a certain look, like the grass and, I don't know how you call it, agriculture, height of the building, not cluttered.
Property maintenance.
Property maintenance, but why shouldn't I be able, if I'm a small business, I should be able to have 2, 3 vehicles in my driveway instead of renting another one.
So you're asking about why you shouldn't be?
Yeah.
Because you're not allowed to. You're allowed to have one vehicle, one commercial vehicle, a certain weight limit.
So as I understand, none of them will be allowed to be parked overnight. None, no commercial vehicles overnight.
One.
So here's it, under 200-44 in the zoning law. Commercial vehicles, not more than one commercial vehicle in excess of 8,500 pounds gross weight may be parked within a private garage or driveway in any residential district. Under no circumstances shall required or extra parking facilities accessory to residential structures be used for the storage of commercial vehicles or for the parking of automobiles belonging to the employees, owners, tenants, customers of nearby businesses or manufacturers. So that's been on the books since 2017. One commercial vehicle in excess of 8,500 pounds can be parked in the driveway, not 2, not 4, not 8, 1.
And that's how it will stay, or it's gonna change?
I guess the question is, what size of the vehicles you're talking about?
Regular van?
Just a
No,
van?
a small truck.
So they're not 8,500 pounds?
So that's how it is. It's not like, so you can have your own commercial vehicle, any
Yeah.
private car.
Can't be over 8,500 pounds. If it is, it's just one. Otherwise, a commercial vehicle, it doesn't say anything under 8,500 pounds. Correct?
It doesn't say that,
No.
but I think you have to be careful that, that you don't have, 6 vans parked in a driveway, because that isn't typically in character of your residential zoning. So you can leave it at that.
So where's the number? Is it 6 or 2 or 3? If I want to have my own business at home,
yeah.
because I can't afford another property.
All right, well, that's getting beyond the scope of this public hearing. That's something that you might want to call the building inspector and discuss with him.
So that's
He would be the
doable.
best person to answer those types of questions.
I just wanted to clarify about one.
Well, I don't know if we clarified it for you, but this is about coming to a home in a residential district with a truck to perform a service or a delivery or whatever. You would be permitted in this new law that we're proposing, you'll be able to do that. And specifically, maybe a landscaper, that's probably the biggest concern of anything, because they'll park and maybe do 3 homes. Driveway is another conversation.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Oh, God.
Hi, Monroe, and I would like like to ask that no future change to the law on a private driveway should be made because, you know, one of or more of anyone want to change this law for whatever reason it is. So what I want to ask the village board that this to park, as we told before, on my private driveway should not be discussed in the future or to make any change.
Listen, I won't speak to the future. No one knows the future. If you do,
Exactly.
we'll meet after. Maybe we could get something going together.
Give me a lottery number.
But I will say that this is about allowing and providing and so forth.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I just have we're introducing this,
Well, this is a public hearing.
right? Well, that's what I'm saying, with the public hearing. Now, the only question I have is, does this tie into anything in there regarding hours of operation? I don't see that here.
Did you want to add something?
Well, I think there's some, well,
Overnight, right? Just
no, I think there's
overnight.
something on the books regarding operations of businesses at a certain time to certain time.
Like what
No?
overnight is?
You want me to search for it? I don't.
You know, no, it's not on that. I know it's not on there. No, it's not.
So
Yeah, I was just wondering if in the current law for commercial businesses operating.
I don't, it could be in numerous places.
Okay, all right, so why don't we just leave the public hearing open for this matter, and we'll, if anybody has any opinion about any pieces, please get them to council.
Just understand that if you don't adopt this local law, then I think the chief brought this up, right?
No, we did. I did.
Didn't he question about ticketing right now?
Yeah, and I told him to just, shut it down. Yep. My point being is that if I don't have an hour's operation, how do I know that a commercial truck isn't in the street till 11 o'clock? Is that permitted? I don't know. It doesn't say.
I'd have to,
Yeah.
I'd have to look.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So rather than hold up or stop or pause, if you want to look it up, we can come back to it. Okay. All right, next order of business is the approval of meeting minutes. I need a motion to approve the meeting minutes as submitted by the clerk for the May 16th meeting.
Carl will make that motion.
O'Connor will second.
Discussion? Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye. Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Next order is to approve the meeting minutes submitted by the clerk for the May 22nd special meeting. I need a motion.
Berenger will make the motion.
O'Connor will second.
Discussion? Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye. Carl abstain.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay. Next order of business, appointment of part-time summer intern, Chris Breen. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approve the appointment of Christopher Breen, 27 Seals Drive, Monroe, New York, 10950, to the position of part-time summer intern. Pre-approval has been received by the Orange County Department of Civil Service. Mr. Breen will be paid at an hourly rate of $18 per hour for 20 hours per week. I need a motion? Yes, I do, actually. Yes, thank you. So it would be 40. 35? Okay. Oh, that's right, yeah, all right. 35 hours per week.
Berenger will make the motion.
Ferraro, second.
Discussion? Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, aye. Carl, aye.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried, thank you. Next order of business is resignation of Police Officer Fred Rowe. Trustee Berenger.
Be it resolved, the Board of Trustees accepts the resignation of full-time police officer Frederick Rowe effective June 5th, 2023. The Board of Trustees wishes Fred well in his future endeavors. I'd like to put this in the form of a motion.
Second, please.
Carl will second that.
Call the question.
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I. Carl, I.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay. Next order of business is the adoption of local law 4 of 2023, rescinding local law number 2 of 2023. I got those all right now?
Yes, it's local law 4.
Okay. Okay, whereas the Village Board of the Village of Monroe duly noticed a public hearing held on May 16, 2023, and whereas the Village Board solicited public comment during said public hearing on May 16, 2023, closed the public hearing and accepted comments for 10 days. And whereas the purpose of this local law is rescinding local law 2 of 2023, which prohibited recreational use of Monbassia Lake. Is that 23 or 22?
It should be 23, we did it in January.
Okay.
We did it this year.
Okay. Now therefore be resolved that the above whereas the paragraphs are incorporated herein by reference. Number 2, the local law rescinding local law 2 of 2023 is adopted as local law 4 of 2023 of the Village of Monroe on June 6, 2023. Number 3, the village board hereby directs the village clerk to take all steps to process and file said local law. And number 4, the resolution shall be effective immediately. Village of Monroe rescinding local law number 2, being enacted legislative findings, purposes, and intent. The Village Board of Trustees finds and determines that until such time as the Village Board adopts regulations related to the issuance of permits for recreational use of Monbassia Lake as authorized pursuant to 10 NY-CRR 133.11, or alternatively, the regulations contained herein are modified to prohibit all use of Monbassia Lake other than water supply purposes. Said access to the lake shall be governed by permit issued by the Village of Monroe. 2, authority. This local law is enacted by the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Monroe pursuant to its authority to adopt local laws pursuant to New York State Constitution and Section 10 of the Municipal Home Rule Law. Section 3, local law 2 of 2023 is hereby rescinded. Section 4, superstition. Okay. Let me just finish.
The operative part is section 3, which is the rescission.
Okay.
You just need to motion it.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the local law 4 of 2023.
Carl will make that motion.
Second?
I'd like to second for discussion. I know we've talked about creating some kind of a policy allowing for boats and permits and stickers. I did look over what was sent to us about how Tuxedo's Drinking Source is also used for boating. And I was also looking over what was sent to us about Clarkstown. And that's something I would like to discuss or visit, because I do feel that it would be nice for the residents to be able to boat and take care, but with the rules that I had looked at with Clarkstown, with inspecting the boats, and that's just something I feel is important.
Okay.
Looking at the boats, inspecting them.
Right.
And, you know, I don't know how that would work with issuing tickets, but I don't mean tickets, I mean stickers or permits for the boats.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you too, Debbie. I think the people seem like they'd be good stewards to be working with us, and I think it's a good idea to work with them. And if anything's gonna happen bad to the lake, I don't think it's because we've given them permission to get in a kayak and enjoy the lake.
I think there has to be a way to do it right,
Yeah,
and I think talking to other municipalities or the residents, that's how I've felt for a while.
Okay, any further comment?
Well, no, the only concern, which is in the original regulations, is the restricted area of 1,000 linear feet from the water intakes. So that's another thing that's got to get resolved as well, so we don't have people boating over top of the water intakes. And that's in the initial law. That never,
That's New York State DOH.
yep.
and that's something that we can do, right? We can somehow fence it off or,
Well, yeah, we
Make
got,
it known.
there are properties that are actually facing, that are right where the water intake,
right,
the 2 intake pipes are.
right,
They were fenced off at one given time.
right, that's what I
And then the
heard.
fence somehow over the years got removed.
Right,
So that's stuff that we have to look at. There's gonna be restricted areas that just getting.
I don't know how we go about it, but and I know, I know it's gonna be probably a big undertaking, but I don't know if it's something
And that's
water
in the state
department is.
that's in the state regulations, so that's something that's gotta get worked on, whether there's buoys, markers, or whatever that are put in place. So that's what we'll have to work on.
Okay, anything further?
So what do we do?
What are we doing?
Want to call a question?
The board should rescind the local law and then work on a policy if that's what the board wants to do.
And how long does that take to work on the policy?
Well, it's up to you guys.
So there.
No, it is. A lot of stuff's gotta get done.
I would suggest, Deb, just
Yeah.
what you should do is, if you can, you want to go up there, look around,
Okay,
picture 1,000 feet from the gate entrance of that, right?
okay, got it. Like Marty, will you come up in a?
And Marty too, Marty
Yeah,
should go
from
up
the
too.
gate
Yeah,
entrance,
Go
yeah.
up and then, draw an arc and see what 1,000 feet is. And-
Okay.
And that's what the New York State, not us,
Okay,
we're rescinding the local law that we did not have the ability to do. That's what we're
Okay.
doing today.
I know, that's why I'm getting confused with the negatives and the
Well, don't get
positives.
confused.
Right.
You're trying to
Right.
adopt the use of the lake when you can't do that tonight.
We gotta find a designated
We have to
point.
find a designated area. We
One
have to
point.
find where that's gonna be. It has to be one point. There's a lot of pieces to this.
Right, I know, and I just feel that we need to get moving on it.
Well, the first thing you have to do is rescind this local law. Otherwise, if you don't rescind this law tonight, let's say you don't.
It's null and void,
Well, it's null and void. It is null and void, but
but you should take action to
we should
rescind.
take the action to make it null and void.
Okay.
Okay, so call the question.
I tried to. Call the
Sorry,
question?
Try
I just
again.
wanted to make sure I'm reading everything right. Call the question, Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carl, I'm.
O'Connor, aye.
I did.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay. Okay, next order of business, we're going to table the adoption of local law 5, right?
Okay.
Oh, because you didn't close the public hearing, yes,
Right.
that's correct. You'll have to table it.
I don't think that local law is ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we had a problem here, think about this, we had a problem here maybe 8 months ago, where we were talking about if we didn't know whether or not the paint truck that's in the street, was the painter inside working, would we ring the doorbell and ask him? Anybody remember that conversation?
No.
I'm afraid I don't remember that.
I
one.
must have been talking to myself. So, yeah, so that came up, because we have, you're allowed to do certain business from this time to this time.
Right.
Well, that's somewhere there. I don't know where it is, I'll defer to you. And that's why
It
I'm not
might
ready.
be in your zoning law, it could be anywhere, but
Could be anywhere. So we gotta find it, because that should be applicable here, because if you're gonna allow the parking, temporary parking, I
it
don't
has to
want,
be temporary.
has to be temporary.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. All right, next order of business is the 13 Lakes Road, tax map 212-2-2, unsafe structure. We received proposals, trustee Carl?
Yes, we received, one second here, let me just get to it. We received one proposal regarding the unsafe structure at 13 Lakes Road. Resolved, the Board of Trustees accepts a proposal from Five Star Construction Unlimited LLC. This is the only proposal received from an RFP that went out. The proposal includes the removal of the front and side porch, removal of existing deck, cleaning all debris, and cartway and dumpsters. Secure all openings that were caused from demo, removal of deck and porch, and close up all first floor openings with labor material included. for the property located at 13 Lakes Road, Town of Monroe, number 212-2-2, with a total cost of $10,500. The cost of such remedies shall be charged and assessed, along with additional administrative fees applicable to said violations, and unpaid sums shall constitute a lien and charge on real property and shall be assessed against the property and collected in the same manner as real estate taxes. And I will put that in the form of a motion.
Berenger will second.
Just a quick thing to discuss, Council. His proposal does not say prevailing wage, and that was a discussion, and that was actually rebid with that
Then
provision.
it does, okay, so he came back with a higher bid.
That's correct.
Did he say it was, he would be paying for
It
the?
doesn't,
It doesn't specifically.
it just says labor and material included.
All right,
That's,
so the resolution should be subject to confirmation that the vendor is paying, or that the contractor will pay prevailing wage.
okay,
Okay?
yep,
So contingent upon,
prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage.
okay, call the question?
Berenger, aye.
ROI.
Carline.
O'Connor, aye.
Who was the first and second on it?
Carl and Berenger.
Okay. Okay. Next order of business is the,
New business. New business.
Yep.
ready? Resolve the Board of Trustees authorize Mayor Dwyer to sign the proposal with Barton Logidis Engineering for the purpose of structural conditions assessment for 47 Lakes Road, tax map 211-1-1. These services will be allocated from budget line A1440.450 Engineering Services. I need a motion.
Berenger will make the motion.
Ferraro, second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carline.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Next order of business, trustee Carl.
Bid award Forshee Street Water Main Replacement Project on Wednesday, November 24, 2023. A bid opening was held at 10 a.m. A total of 12 sets of contract documents were obtained by prospective bidders, and a total of 9 bids were submitted for the Forshee Street Water Main Replacement Project. Regal Utility Service of Hewitt, New Jersey was the lowest bidder on the project, submitting a bid in the amount of $369,136.20. Village engineer John O'Rourke, P.E. of Lincoln Tully Engineering and Surveying, P.C., reviewed all bids and submitted a letter of recommendation to the board to award the bid to Regal Utilities, the lowest responsible bidder. So resolve the Board of Trustees accepts the engineer's recommendation and awards the bid for the Forshee Street Water Main Replacement Project to Regal Utility Services, 731 Warwick Turnpike, Hewitt, New Jersey, 07421, the amount of $369,136.20, and I will put that in a motion.
O'Connor will second.
Forshee and Freeland, that gets straightened out?
I got to talk to, Ernie found something down there, but,
So we're good?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right, so we have first and second. Any further discussion? Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carline.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Thank you.
He's got marks in the pavement, so he said there's something there, but
Okay. Okay, next order of business, the Monroe Cheese Festivals. Resolve the Board of Trustees approve the special events permit application submitted by Mayor Dwyer to host the Village of Monroe Cheese Festival on Sunday, September 10, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. The festival will consist of vendors and music. Setup for the event will begin at 9 a.m. The festival will be held throughout the downtown of the village, resulting in street closures in and around Lake Street and Mill Pond Parkway. This event has been reviewed and approved by the Building Department, DPW, and Police Department. Marshall and Sterling Insurance, Monroe Fire District, and Monroe Volunteer Ambulance Corps will be notified. I need a motion to accept the event application as submitted.
O'Connor will make the motion.
Ferraro, second.
Discussion? Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carline.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Next order of business, event application for the Village of Monroe Community Barbecue, August 19th. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves a special events permit application submitted by Mayor Dwight to host the Village of Monroe's Community Barbecue on Saturday, August 19th, 2023, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Crane Park at Lake Street and Mill Pond Parkway, including a concert beginning at 5 p.m. The Building Department, DPW, and Police Departments have all reviewed and approved the event application. Emergency services and the village's insurance carrier, Marshall and Sterling, will be copied on the approval letter. I need a motion to accept the event as submitted.
Berenger will make the motion.
Ferraro, second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carl, I.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Next order of business, Police Department inventory request to dispose. Trustee Berenger.
Be resolved, the Board of Trustees declares the following Police Department non-working equipment surplus and of no value, and authorize its removal from inventory and disposal as junk. Do I say that? Decatur?
Yep.
Genesis 2 Select Radar, serial number G2S-22069, Decatur rear antenna, serial number G2SKD-8107. I'd like to put this in the form of a motion.
Second?
Ferraro, second.
Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carl, I.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Next order of business is introduction to local law 9 of 2023, to set the public hearing. The introduction of local law 9, 2023, set the public hearing, local law to extend the moratorium. Is it to extend, or is it a new moratorium?
To extend existing moratorium.
It's a local law that extends the existing moratorium, but you have to do it by local law.
No, agreed. I'm just, the way you just read it, does that make sense to you?
A local law to extend the temporary moratorium on land use development processing and approvals.
So it's a temporary moratorium, not a moratorium? I'm not picking hairs, I'm just...
All moratoriums are temporary.
Okay, so introduction of local law 9 of 2023 and set public hearing. So the local law to extend the temporary moratorium on land use development processing and approvals. The Village of Monroe local law to extend the temporary moratorium on land use development processing and approvals. Be resolved that an introductory local law titled Local Law to Extend the Temporary Moratorium on Land Use Development Processing and Approvals is hereby introduced by Mayor Dwight before the Board of Trustees, Village of Monroe, County of Orange, State of New York, and be further resolved that copies of the aforesaid local law be laid upon the desk of each member of the Board of Trustees. And be further resolved, the Board of Trustees shall hold a public hearing on said local law at the Village Hall, 7 Stage Road, Monroe, New York, 7 p.m. on June 20th, and be it further resolved that the village clerk shall cause or publish or cause to be published a public notice in the official newspaper of the Village of Monroe no later than 10 days prior thereto. I need a motion.
O'Connor will make the motion.
Second?
Berenger will second.
Discussion? Call the question?
Berenger, aye.
Ferraro, I.
Carl, I.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried, thank you. Next order of business is an agreement between Kimley Horn Engineering and Landscape Architecture for the Orange Turnpike and Pine Tree Road, Still Road, and Stage Road traffic study. Resolved, the Board of Trustees authorize Mayor Dwyer to enter into an agreement with Kimley Horn Engineering and Landscape Architecture of New York, 1 North Lexington Avenue, Suite 505, White Plains, New York, 10601, for the purposes of reviewing the traffic study for Orange Turnpike and Pine Tree Road, Still Road, and Stage Road. The total cost of the scope of services to be allocated from budget line A1440.4500, engineering contractual, and is not to exceed an amount of $6,540. I need a motion.
Ferraro, make the motion.
A second.
Carl will second for discussion, if
Please.
anything. I'm looking at, I guess this is some sort of a rendering. That
Yeah,
was-
with several options that she put out. Yep.
And looking at, it looks like you're gonna have driveways that are going to be affected by this, either one of these that we do. So I'm not quite sure how that would, how that's gonna play out.
Well, I think that's all going to come out in the study. I think right now, the goal for the public to understand is that they want to know what cars are moving where, from where are they moving, where are they going, what turns are they making. So we have to have an understanding so that when you present the DOT with a traffic warrant that says, hey, we need to have a light here, we just can't install lights. We have to have a warrant, and the warrant is issued through the state DOT. So we have to show them that there's a particular need here. This is really an abomination of an intersection, that was built when
Oh,
Franklin was still alive.
there's no,
Yeah.
you know, there's no argument there. I guess my question is, when do they plan on starting this?
Thursday.
So they're going to be
School
doing it
traffic
while
will be there,
Pine
exactly.
Tree School traffic is still there.
That's why I pushed
Yeah.
it. All right, so they'll take that study and then develop the numbers.
Yeah, because we don't want them here all summer long saying,
No.
geez, there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's nothing.
So, all right, okay.
All right?
Okay.
Okay, so we had a first and second, further discussion, call the question.
Berenger,
Ferraro,
aye.
aye.
RLI.
O'Connor, aye.
Dwyer, aye, so carried. Okay. I don't have anything other than the lake crew are here to discuss what work I've done, we've done. So, does the board have anything, first of all, before we get to public comment?
Just fireworks will be July the 2nd, working on applications. The village clerk has been getting them, so I'll be getting into them probably tomorrow or Thursday. We do have some vendors that want to come in and sell food and stuff, and we do have the fire department, so new fireworks company this year. It's going to be a larger display than we've had in the past, so July 2nd and July 3rd is the rain date.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Trustee O'Connor? Good? Okay. All right, before we get into public comment, I'm just going to read a couple of things that I'd like the folks here tonight and in TV land to hear. Some of it to clear the record and some of it to exemplify further where we're at as a board with regard to the use of the reservoir. So, back when I first became mayor, a resident up there, Allison Priest, had reached out to me. Actually, she was at a meeting, I think, and informed us of the water chestnut issue. That resulted in a group meeting that was organized, I assume, and I'll defer to Allison on this, between Annette Comito and a group of residents around the lake to discuss what we're going to do about it. That resulted, that organizational meeting was attended by myself and Trustee Carl, and as well a group called PRISM. And they began their work that day, as far as I know. They submitted their results, and that was shared with the group, and myself, and again, Trustee Carl and my board. We took that data and resolved to perform a weed program with that information to address the weed infestation, particularly the water chestnut. We had a meeting up at Lakeside Firehouse where we talked about PRISM's results, what concerns the group had, and that included, I think, an offer to go in and pick the weeds, pick out the water chestnuts themselves. I don't recall being a big fan of that for safety reasons, but that information that we took in and from the folks and so forth, we resolved to perform the weed program, and it would take a minimum of 3 years to abate and reassess where we're at with that program. So this summer is year 3. We advised the group that night also, I believe, that we were going to purchase, or we were looking into purchasing a weed harvester. And that we told this group at that meeting at Lakeside that after the 3rd year, we would revisit the opportunity to become stewards of the lake and have a discussion on how to create that opportunity, whether it be through watercraft, emblems, design, whatever. But at that time, we would do that. Just for public knowledge, since 1992 to today, so 31 years, there have been 5,204 calls for service up at Monbassia Lake of different forms and concerns. 5,204. Of those, 53 were created arrests, and the rest were various situations, including compliance and so forth with the violations, which, to my knowledge, and I'm just going to put it out there, maybe you don't have the same feeling about it, but to my knowledge, we had the right to do so. So since 1992, we had, prior to that, had watchmen up there enforcing the no use of the lake, and it wasn't until just recently, through the state DOH, that we realized that we did not have the ability to do some of those things, and that's why we rescinded that law tonight. I know that Supervisor Cardone had come up to represent his residents on 3 occasions regarding the concerns that you all have about not being able to use it. And while I respect that and appreciate his concern for his constituents, he has initial 10,000 constituents right here in the village of Monroe. And my job here, and this board's job here, is to protect those 10,000 residents from whatever, however, why ever, if ever. So I appreciate his concerns. I want to be make it very perfectly clear that this board has a job to do. We have residents in the village and the town that drink that water. And making sure that it's potable, safe water to drink is number one for me and this board. I did have, or I tried to go through all the deeds that were supplied by Ms. Tauber, and, you know, it's a lot of work. So the board is right now going to be considering actually doing a research, doing a title search on the whole lake to the beginning of time.
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that the board read the 1929 appellate case, which does go through the deeds, okay, starting at April 1st, 1797, and ending with the Sterling Iron lease of Monbassia Lake to the village. And then, of course, there's a subsequent deed in 48. So those cases that went all the way to the Court of Appeals, the 2 cases, Sheeran and Benjamin, were actually representative cases. There was apparently at that time, back in the 20s, many residents who were concerned and upset about not being able to use the lake, and the attorneys for the village and the attorneys for the residents got together and selected those 2 as representative cases of all of the landowners. So that case sets out in detail the progression of deeds, and it's not just a place to start, it's a definitive place to start. If you wish to go into more depth about, you know, the perhaps subsequent deeds, just bear in mind that you can only convey what you have the right to convey, notwithstanding what your deed might say. So that is a place to start. You all have that decision. It was upheld by the Court of Appeals, and again, it goes through the 1797, 1803, 1841, 1820, 1827, 36, 59, 56, 64, 95, up to 1920. Okay, so it does set forth all the evidence that was presented in that case. And the determination was ultimately that the Village of Monroe owns the lake, the water, the bed under the lake for the purpose of
Whole property.
the whole property.
Irrespective of this?
I don't know what that says,
The high
because
water
I can't even read, well, this goes,
I'm having a tough time, but that's why.
there was the ability to flood, right, to increase the impoundment capacity of the lake, okay, and that, you know, that went from Townsend to Crawford, and on forward to Sterling Iron and Railway. Okay, so they not only owned it, they could make it bigger.
Okay.
So that's the place to start.
Okay.
And it's, and obviously, and you have the thousands of pages that included all of the exhibits, meaning the deeds, that were provided to the trial court, the appellate division, and then on appeal to the Court of Appeals.
Okay, so I'm sure that they're going to think otherwise, so.
That's fine. We can
That's
all go
fine.
to court.
Right, right.
And do it again, but.
Okay, I just want to be sure that, right, okay. All right, so I'm going to go through some of the things that were said and questioned at the last meeting, so hopefully we can run through these as well. I'm not going to create a back and forth, and he said, she said. My intent tonight was to try to clear as many factual pieces as I saw them and knew them to be, and I hope everybody's on the same page as I am, at least to the point where I mentioned that we did not have the right to create the local law prohibiting the use of the lake on a couple of pieces. The DOH does, in fact, state, and it is in the law, that within 1,000 feet of the infall, you are not allowed to be there for any purposes or reasons, period.
The intake,
The intake, infall.
no, it's different.
Okay.
It's an outfall.
Okay. So the intake. I think it additionally says there's no swimming,
No swimming, no fishing from the shore.
right? So, but we do not have the right outside of 1,000 feet intake to prohibit you from using your boat
Until you have a permitting scheme.
until we have a permitting, right, which we don't have,
You don't have the scheme,
right,
but you can certainly create one.
right, but we don't have it.
You don't have it now.
So everybody here has a boat, go have at it, because we have no right to stop you. But we do have a right to stop you from swimming, doing any other kind of business in the water. You can't do it. That's prohibited. The 1,000 feet intake area is prohibited. Fishing from the shore is prohibited throughout the lake.
Actually, putting a boat in at any other point except the one designated, the point designated by this board is prohibited.
Is it prohibited now, or is it prohibited when the permitting process happens?
Launching of boats may only take place at a point designated by the Village of Monroe, Water Superintendent. Don't,
We're not going to do that.
so,
It says it, that's the state law she's
Right.
reading.
this is
The DOH.
133.11.
Yeah.
DOH.
Can they fish from their boat?
Yes.
You gotta come up with a designated point. We
But
can't
there's-
use the
Right.
gatehouse, because that's within 1,000 feet of the water intakes.
Yeah,
So we're
that's-
challenged on that as well. So we have to figure that out. That's a whole nother conversation, another day. I am not prepared to speak on it, or to deal with it, or address it. It's a lot of work. As you see from the agenda this evening, the board has a lot of serious work to be dealing with right now. And this is another piece. This is the beginning of the third year of the weed harvesting that we're doing. Unfortunately, we had a location that we had for 2 years, or at least a year, to drop our weeds off at, but that was taken away this year. So we had to find an alternate location. We finally found a location, and we're hoping to use that. I have a meeting tomorrow with my engineers and my wetlands people, and we're going to be investigating it to confirm that it's in conformance with our ability to do so. Just regarding, real quick, so there was a statement made that the grant application that was submitted and approved for funds to purchase some property contradicts the local law. Okay, well, there is no more local law on that, but nonetheless, it talks about in the grant application that there was recreational use on the lake. And I'm going to just kind of blow through this a bit, because the point behind it is that I've reached out to the grant writer who wrote this. Ultimately, it was my responsibility to catch maybe the problem, but the error there is recreation. They spent so much time in the grant to secure the safety of the water and its use and blah, 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 but then threw in 3 different paragraphs that was also supplied to me the ability to recreate, which to me is is contrary to what the original statement was supposed to have been. So, we're researching that now, and that's where that stands as far as the grant application. If we find through the grant people and the DASNY folks at New York State that they feel otherwise, then we'll make sure that that's not the problem, and we'll either modify or follow their lead lawfully to make sure that we're doing as we're told to do. There was a comment made by Allison Priest regarding the, says the residents on Bayshore Lake are not the problem. Nobody's saying you are. Nobody is saying that the residents on that lake that live there are the problem, and that they are the solution for contamination. And we did agree to work as a unit, so all good. Everett spoke about the proposed rescinding of local law. The proposed law has no recreational use until permitting process is adopted, and that's correct. How long will it take? I'm not sure yet. He feels that the village has no faith in the residents surrounding the lake. The residents help protect the lake. They are the eyes. He has also questioned who has the certifications to enforce trespasses of the lake. And we have determined that we do have the right to remove trespasses and any activity that the DOH, state DOH deems is in our purview to do so, and we will. We will send police enforcement up there to deal with it. But as I said, if you're doing your thing on your boat, although it does say one launch point, I don't know. Did anybody go out over the weekend for the holiday? There you go, okay? So, what?
One quick question, over in Sharon's Cove, they're getting dropped off by Ubers now, there was like 30 of them there over the weekend.
Sure.
And I don't know if you guys are aware of it, they're not parking anymore, they're just.
Well, so, I don't know if I shared this story. So, 3 years ago, I was up there with the police, as Supervisor Cardone, and a couple of residents from Hain. And 7 kids, 6 came out of the water when they were told to come out, 1 didn't. The one that didn't was naked.
I think you told us this.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So I took my shirt off to give them some clothes to get dressed. It was ridiculous. But the point is that the police are on it. There's a regular rotation. The reason there's 5,209 calls for service up there,
It's usually there.
it's usually there. We do get a few that skirt around the gate and the spillway and then sit out on the lawn.
Corona, there was a lot of them always.
So, all that, yep, exactly. So, we're working through that.
I mean, is there someone I can notify to help? Because right now, you can't, I don't think the police, they're not getting out of their cars and walking past the gate, so they have absolutely no clue that they're back there. They're just looking for cars parking, and there's no cars parked anymore. They're all getting dropped off by Ubers, like van Ubers.
If you,
Literally like 30, 40 of them, they're barbecuing, fishing poles, swimming, doing everything. The pile of garbage that everyone around here are picking up. I mean, I'm sure you guys saw when you were back there running the machine.
Sure.
You saw the pile before you were doing the work. They're making quite a mess back there.
Yeah.
And they're not from around here either. I spoke to a couple of them that are not even like local.
No, they're doing drugs, they're drinking,
They're
partying.
from, like, Jersey now,
Yep.
Because they can't get into like Lake Welch and all the.
But if you find the description, and I'm not saying on the Village of Monroe site, but if you go to the Town of Monroe site, there's these 3 beautiful lakes to come and recreate and enjoy and have at it and smoke dope and do all kinds of cool things. What do you think one of them is? Okay.
Bayshore Lake.
Well, that's the weakest spot, I believe, on the whole lake.
Well, you're probably right, because it's the most hidden.
It's the
Right.
quickest way in.
So we're working on that, but if you do see it, call over to PD, and I will make sure that they're aware that there are going to be people out there that are not, yeah, please. Okay, so, again, Supervisor Cardone wants us to work with the residents, and we understand and appreciate that, as I think we have since day one, notwithstanding whatever we've been through together. Marion Bischoff doesn't understand the wording in the proposed local law in reference to permitting system adoption. The village is just not rescinding the local law. She'd like to see the village commit to a time frame, and unfortunately, Marianne, we can't do that right now. We just can't. I'm not going to kid you. I mean, the amount of time that goes into not only this, but we've got 4 local laws we're trying to work through. We've got a zoning to finish. We've got a comp plan to put out. And all of that has to be considered. That's the reason we kept it open. That's the reason we're extending the moratorium. And everybody understands that. It's so much work. and the bandwidth is just, difficult. Annette Collazo Comito said that she thinks, she's offended that the village would think that they care only about the recreation of the lake. Listen, everybody has their different reasons for being on the lake. I imagine if I were a lake owner and I wanted to be on the lake, it would be to recreate on the lake. It's nice to look on it. There's a great movie out on Golden Pond. There's a lot of good reasons why you do all that. So I think we need to let that go. All the personal feelings, all that stuff's got to go. We got a job to do. We understand. It's clearly noted. Same, Alex, you had mentioned, you asked about how could your your kayak be contaminating. And listen, I've tried to find it, and I don't want to get back and forth, not only with you, with anybody. I can't find out where I actually, or this board actually said that we think you contaminated the lake.
Law number 2 said possible contamination.
Okay, yeah, so I get it. So possible contamination. And possible contamination, Mr. O'Neill, could actually happen in the future. No, I understand that. But what I mean to say is, and I'm glad we're doing this, because now it kind of brings that to a head. There's no malintent or otherwise. It was never an issue, going back to when I first became aware, which was a sewer spillage on the force main on Elm Street on the other side of the lake, that I got called in at the middle of the night to find out that I had effluent flowing back into my lake through the movement system. I'm sure it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional, but I understand it. I just want to be clear that we're not saying nor suggesting it. Jim Sussman at Scenic View, wasn't Jim here tonight? There you go. And you had said we should put more effort into keeping the lake clean, which I think we do, removing trash, which I think you've been, and removing the seed pod accumulation, see the attached photos and so forth. So I'm not an expert on it. I did speak to Trustee Carl, who seems to have a better bandwidth or understanding of it. The pictures that Mr. Sussman sent, what do those represent?
Those are the empty pods. Those pods have seeds in them. When they break off the stem, they sink to the bottom of the lake. Seeds drop out, and eventually those pods become buoyant and float to the top. So they're years' worth of accumulation of pod seeds. There's no seeds in the pods. There's no seeds in them.
Okay. So
Seeds
to
will
his
drop
concern,
the
then
seeds is what drops down into
the damage is already
lake,
done.
and then it starts to grow back up. And that's been our ultimate goal, even through PRISM, whether hand-pulled or mechanical, is to get those pods out before they drop off the seeds and sink to the bottom of the lake. Because once that happens, and I believe they said each one of those pods has up to like 13 seeds in it. So that's been our main goal the last 2 years, is to get as many of those out as we can. And we have done a pretty good job at it. I see some sprouting up over towards the spillway. There's a few down in Sharon's Cove, not a whole lot, but again, they told us we start to see a vast improvement in 3 years. This is year 3, so we're hoping this is the turning point for us. And it's a maintenance item that's going to have to continue. We can't just stop and say, okay, we're all done and that's it, because if they're going to continue, we got to just stay on top of it, and that's our goal.
Okay, I'm just repeating myself at this point. Anybody from the public, and I know everybody has maybe something to say or not, I don't know. But I'm not gonna create a back and forth. If you have something that could be entered into the minutes, I appreciate that, please do.
Marianne Bischoff from 60 Water Plant Road. Mayor Dwyer, I think you said we've been through a lot together, and that's what it feels like. And I want to thank you all for listening to us for all these times that we've been here and all the things that we've submitted. And it brings a lot of joy to my heart that we can work together on protecting the lake and allowing us to continue enjoying it for recreation. Thank you, Trustee Berenger, for bringing up what you did, and Trustee O'Connor for continuing it, and Trustee Carl for talking about how we have to figure out about the 1,000 feet diameter, and Mayor Dwyer for reading everything like you said you would and responding. I really appreciate that. So thank you all, and thank you, Berenger. Trustee Ferraro. At every meeting, I feel like you're really listening and you nod, and I really appreciate that. And thank you, Attorney Terhune. Okay, this is going down.
Larry O'Neill, 8 Riley Road. Thank you. Mayor Dwyer, I want to thank you for being responsive to my request to be more reasonable about the operating hours. That's worked out very well, and I appreciate Kim for making sure the messages get through when I send them. Again, thank you, Trustee O'Connor and Trustee Berenger, for taking that stance and allowing this dialogue to be open. That's all we've ever wanted, is dialogue and to work together on this. So if you haven't seen the lake and you want a view of the lake, I'm right next to the gatehouse. You can't miss it. You probably get the same view from the lake, from the house, but it looks better from my deck. So,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, please?
I know, you all don't see me for a while, and all of a sudden I can't shut up. That's the usual. First question, you were talking about 47 Lakes Road. What is that?
That's Roscoe Smith's house.
Okay, because I never remember. And what's the issue with that house right
So
now?
the property owner has put in for a demolition permit,
Yep.
and part of our process is to go in, because we're in a moratorium, and if he's seeking a waiver for that, we have to go in and assess and determine what we see and what our findings are, and we would present that to the owner.
I mean, as far as whether you think it should be or can be demolished?
The condition is, I
Okay.
won't make any.
So let me ask you something, because we all know Roscoe Smith's house, you know, I've talked about it too, Mayor, we've talked about it and stuff, but let me ask you something. What about 13 Lakes Road? What about whatever happened 3 years ago? I filed a complaint against, on 217 High Street. Nothing ever came of it. That house is still sitting there, the siding's still falling off, and you're worried about Roscoe Smith's house,
13 Lakes Road, we
the one
authorized,
next to Susan Sallow.
just authorized that portion to be removed.
Is that
from-
that?
That's-
But what about the entire building inside? I mean, that's worse than a Roscoe Smith's house. I'm just wondering. I haven't been around in a while.
So the determination on the 13 Lake was taken up by the building department, code enforcement. It's in major disrepair, and they want the porch off. It's unsafe.
What about the rest of the building? How secure is that? My understanding from Susan, it was totally dilapidated inside. I'm just curious.
He hasn't gone in.
Okay, and then what happened with...
The owner, we just can't go into property.
Well, I understand it, but you can look in windows because they do it all the time. But more importantly, what happened to 217 High Street? That was a dilapidated building across the street from me. I filed a complaint on it. They spoke to you, they spoke before this board, the building department, and said he was working on looking into it, he's waiting on something, and nothing ever happened.
Is that Dr. Hoffman's?
Yes, sir. Nothing ever happened with the house. It just like fell off the grid, but it's falling apart. And you look at the side of the house, on the back side, you can see all the siding coming off, you can see all the rot on the wood. Now, Roscoe Smith's house is made out of stone. The recent house I dealt with that was made out of stone, they actually fastened the interior walls to the outside stone wall. So maybe the interior, I haven't been inside the Roscoe Smith house, of course, but I wish I could be, but maybe the deterioration isn't the structure, maybe the deterioration is the interior wood structures but the actual building it's not. Maybe it is all bad. Who knows? But, you know, I know the board has tried to save it. I know John has a long history with this property. But again, I'm going back to, I know how much you want to save it, but what happened to 217? And, you know, and I mean, that 13 is an eyesore. I don't know how this guy's been able to keep that building up the way it looks. I mean, if he had holes in the roof, that I can clearly tell you that around that chimney, you know, somebody who's dealt with it, it's probably rotted all that wood inside, which makes it a structural hazard. And I know that people have called about squatters on that building, and that supposedly they built, you know, so I'm just wondering what happened when we're concentrating on one, Mayor.
But just to be clear, so you put a complaint in 3 years ago?
About roughly, on 217.
Okay. Yeah, Hoffman's house.
On the Hoffman house.
So we're going to get with the building department tomorrow, and we're gonna find out what happened to your complaint.
Okay,
And I'm gonna know by tomorrow where that stands.
right, because I mean, it's fair, if we're going to do one thing for one, we need to do it for the
No, I'm
other.
arguing with you, you know what?
That's my point.
Out of sight, out of mind. I
Right.
never thought about it, but you're spot on.
Right, okay, thank you, folks.
Joseph Haspel, attorney for W.C. Lincoln, the owner of 47. I just want to make sure that the correspondence between myself and the board and the board's counsel is part of the record with respect to the apparent resolution today to hire this outside engineer.
The apparent, I'm sorry, Joe, the apparent?
I think you passed the resolution. It happened so fast, I blinked and I missed it. It was the only thing that
What it
happened
is,
tonight.
it's that, all that Evelyn Wood training. I just.
I blinked and I think
Done.
you're on one thing and then you're on the next thing. I think I deduced that there was no that there was no discussion and there was a vote
Done.
and okay. So my question is, I wanted to make sure that the correspondence between myself and the board is part of the record with respect to that.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so
great.
much. Thank you. Okay, anyone from the, yes, please.
Hi, Allison Priest, 24 Lakeview Drive. I just want to say thank you, especially to Trustee Berenger and Trustee O'Connor for recognizing that the residents of Lake Mombacha have a right and to enjoy recreational, and to Mayor Dwyer, Trustee Carl, and Ferraro for us all to work together. So I thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dawn Taber. I also wanted to thank the board for their openness and willingness to work with us, especially Trustee Berenger, Trustee O'Connor, and Trustee Call for your willingness to come to some type of a discussion to talk further. And I hope that everybody realized through this entire process that we are here as a resource and an ally, and we all want the same thing from the lake. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Lorraine Loning. I want to talk to you about the sidewalks in the village. Last fall, we received a new sidewalk that I didn't ask for. When I came home from work, it was being torn up. I called the village clerk, and they're like, "Yeah, you want a new sidewalk," that I didn't really want. But I got it. But like my neighbors didn't get it. Some of them, it's very haphazard the way they were being awarded. So I have my sidewalk. I called earlier in the spring to see if you guys were going to do some seeding and fill in with topsoil between the grass and the sidewalk. And I think you emailed me, say, yes, it's coming, it's on its way. Well, they came, but what was planted, I mean, it's just weeds. There is absolutely not one blade of grass that is growing, just weed. Took a whole bunch of pictures. I was wondering if you could send someone else to reseed that, or I'd be happy to reseed it and send you guys the invoice. You know, it's like, it is just, curb appeal is important,
Right.
you know, a lot of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially now.
Yeah.
And I really want it to look nice, and
Sure.
it doesn't. So.
Where would you buy your seed?
Where would I buy it? I'd probably go to Lowe's or somewhere, maybe.
Lowe's?
Somewhere, yeah.
Oof.
Well, dude, where you're buying your seeds, no, I have pictures that it's not
So
cool.
we're buying Jonathan Green from Beck's Hardware.
Okay,
So we're buying local, and we're
That's
buying the
great.
best seed in the market.
come to my house, I'll show you the best seed.
Well, I drove by it, I didn't get out, I was afraid to.
Yeah.
But,
I've been weeding constantly, because,
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, some of my neighbors, it's a foot high, the weeds, and it's like, I don't want that. So I've been out there pulling it, and,
well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna send somebody back out.
I'd appreciate that.
Yep, and we'll see what we can see.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Thanks. Okay.
Jim Sussman, 7 Scenic View. Again, thank everybody for, at least kind of hearing us, and at least the last comments that maybe like we're trying to work together. And really want to reiterate, we are here to help. I mean, Mayor Dwyer, you said there's so much work to do for you guys. We've got 30 of us around the lake. We have some expertise on maybe like helping draft permitting systems and things. You're the final say. It's your permitting system, but we can help you with some of the groundwork. It's easier to make corrections than start from scratch sometimes. So ask for help, utilize us. We're here to do it for you. I sent you something this morning too, so you don't have to worry, but don't worry about that one too much, because now I think I got the answer of. I figured that's what it was. It's a new landing spot.
Right.
But I was concerned about the runoff. It's your own.
Sure.
There's no stuff there, so
Yeah.
no gravel.
There is now.
They put gravel down. I figured they're going.
Well, they silt fenced it and made it and seeded it and.
But I figured that's what it was for.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was more just to say thanks, and I figured that was the original spot where they did the stuff years and years ago, way up in the woods. That's where they dumped that stuff. So
What
it
our
makes sense.
plan was, they'll offload there, and then it'll get picked up by truck. And machine, and put in a dump truck and taken out to the town landfill.
It's an easy spot. It makes sense.
Well, we gotta try, the more spots we get, the easier it is, because if these guys gotta go all the way back to the gatehouse.
You burn fuel and you burn time.
It almost takes a month to sun.
They're not race boots.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're not.
No, we get it. So anyway, like, utilize us. You'll have everybody's contact info. Let us know what you need us to do. If you're gonna have to look back 100 years on deeds, that's a ton of time. Might be easier just to build the system, which then we don't need the deed.
Well, yeah, and that's true.
You probably want to get it for your own work, but, I don't think one doesn't replace the other.
No, and my simple point, Jim?
Yeah.
My simple point was that I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that, A, I did receive it, but B, I have a counsel that's very apt at doing what she does, and she spent a week.
That's a lot of billable hours looking through about 100 years of deeds.
Oh, but not so much this, but the diligence behind the 21, the 29, and the 32 decisions. That's the court of law. That's what D-Day was about. That's what my old man standing on that pole right now
I
is
do
about.
with a lot of M&A lawyers and lawyers throughout the course of the day, and it's like, once you hear those conversations started, you're like, you know where it's going, and it's a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of burning of people's opportunities. So hopefully we just find that middle ground, and none of that's even needed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. I think if anyone else from the public would like to speak?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to go into executive for attorney-client and personnel.
Berenger will make the motion.
Carl will second.
Thank you. So where's that barbecue at you were talking about?
So I used to do, before COVID, we barbecue competitions. I was involved in kosher barbecue competitions.
Yeah?
Are we out?
So I'll tell you something really cool.
Are we out?
Thanks,
Did you
Neil
vote?
Dwyer.
No,
Pleasure.
nobody.
Go into executive session?
So there's a,
Did you vote to go into executive session?
I did it, didn't I?
No.
Okay, you're in executive session, because you
Okay.
called it.
I was so excited to talk about barbecue. So there's an Iron, not an Iron Chef, but they call it